Tell me when to go. Okay. This is an unboxing of the game Skirmish by American Heritage. And this is going to be a little bit unusual because it's an ancient game, but I have an unopened copy. Usually your unboxings are of new games. And this game has a lot of nostalgia for me because I loved this game when I was in elementary school. This game was made for the American Bicentennial, and now it's the 250 year centennial. And I remember looking at this game in the game store in Clear Lake City. I think it was called Toys by Roy, and I think I maybe looked at it more than once. They would bring it down for you and let you look at it, and I think I maybe looked at it more than once before I finally bought it another trip, but I remember being impressed by it. And I think at this time I maybe or maybe not had a Avalon Hill game or two, which I was really too young for. Look at that, American Heritage Skirmish. Made for the 200th anniversary of our country, and now it's 250 years. And I think they let me look into it. And I remember looking into it, and you know what I thought? That's by the seller. You know what I remember looking into it when I saw this? I remember thinking, oh my God, it takes you on the oceans also? I saw those ships in addition to foot soldiers, and it just kind of like took me to a world like that I had experienced that I wasn't expecting, like on land and sea. So I ended up buying it, and this was literally one of my favorite games for a long time. That's just a perfectly mint map, as if I had just opened that in the mid-70s when I originally had this. And I liked this game a lot. This was my favorite probably of the American Heritage series. This one and Dogfight I thought were by far head and shoulders above the others as far as games. I eventually had all of them except for Hit the Beach. I did not have Hit the Beach. It was not reissued in this bicentennial series. I own it now, but I have never played it. And so we have this. Just like I would have opened this in the mid-70s, just as mint, when I finally decided to spend my hard-earned allowance money on this, and I'm glad I did. And this game, I enjoyed so much. And then I got to a point in my life in high school where I was interested more in sports and heavy metal and playing guitar, and I donated it, and I regretted it ever since. So here, I mean, it's a shame to ever unopen that. It's a shame to have to unopen this. And what's even stupider is my house is in such disarray that I have a perfectly playable copy I bought on eBay 20 years ago that I cannot find because I condensed it to a small box and I forgot where that small box is. I have the board, but I can't find the small box. So anyways, in Skirmish you have your advertisements for the games remaining in the series. I guess Hit the Beach wasn't worthy and was dropped. Skirmish, Broadside. I did not care that much for Broadside, but I want to revisit it adult. Battle Cry. It has the wonderful looking game. I did not like how it's played that much, although now that I'm older and played it with my son, I'm really enjoying it. Not looking at it as a simulation of the American Civil War, but just as a fun game, and I think we've enjoyed it. And Dogfight, which I think is an excellent game. So what we have in Skirmish is 2 dice cups. These are very important because in the game you roll. This is a very clever game. It probably does the American Revolution better than many current games. You roll your dice in this cup. And the British have 1, I think, from what I remember. The Americans have 2. And the British, I believe, have to point to what army they're going to move. Then the Americans can move there 2. Then the British can move there 1. And this was very clever, I think, for the time. In Battle Cry, 1 unit took up 1 square. In this game, they had armies that were stackable, so that you were no longer... Your armies no longer stretched out over states. They could be in one location. And this is the weirdest thing that nobody ever appreciates. This combat system, where you have so many armies on one side, so many armies on the other, the side with the most gets a plus to the dice, then you roll dice. You know, that's basically the same combat system in Washington's War, which is considered the state-of-the-art game of the American Revolution right now. And that's basically the same combat system, but nobody would care to admit that. And then the other thing in this game, these cards, there were 2 types of battles. There were the major battles, which would be what I just described. And then there were the skirmishes, where which you would draw this card, and the Americans would almost always win a skirmish. A skirmish, you only had to be adjacent. A battle, you had to be in the same square. A skirmish, almost always the Americans would win. And it was a way for the Americans to whittle down the British before they could win a battle. And if I remember correct, just like in modern games like Washington's War and We the People, the Americans had to win a major battle before they were taken seriously. And just like that in this game, when the Americans win a major battle, they can get French reinforcements. And the reinforcements come on this a little bit odder looking ship. It's kind of funny. They made one ship that's really a good looking ship, and then another ship which is made to carry reinforcements. But that's what these made. And you see these 2 armies? These are like the army leaders. Think of them as like Gates or Benedict Arnold. They can lead these. And boy, I have my original game, I remember playing it with my next door neighbor, Jill. And I showed her how to play, and she said, "Oh, do these rifles bend?" And she bent it and it broke. And I was like, oh my God. I'm so picky about my parts. And then for the rest of my childhood, I had to play with a broke rifle because my neighbor said, "Oh, do these bend?" And then bent it and broke it. Now this, looking back, is not particularly... The fact that the Americans have a legitimate navy to compete with one of the British's 3 navies is really not quite right. Until late in my life, they always used to say the Constitution fought in 2 wars. And they said that about the Texas, the USS Texas. That's where we live in Houston, where we can visit the Texas. And then the Texas was in World War I and World War II. I always thought, oh, the Constitution was in the Revolution and the War of 1812. Boy, that was one of the wrongest things I've ever been in my life. When they said fought in 2 wars, I think they meant the Constitution fought in 1812 in the war against the Barbary pirates. So the British have 3 fleets, and then these are what their armies look like. They have 4 of them. Some of them somehow fell off the sprues, even though the game was never touched. Just over time. The British also get reinforcements, just not many. And then this is the key piece. That's General Washington. The colonies have 2 armies plus Washington equals 3 armies. If they ever lose Washington, the game's over. I remember once playing with my neighbor Doug, and he beat Washington early in the game, and I lost. I remember him bragging, "I beat Washington in 3 moves or something." That's the luck of the draw. This book, the historical commentary that comes with it, this is where I learned most of what I know about the Revolution, at least pre-college. This is where I learned most of the Revolution. And then you have your rule book. The map board we looked at earlier. I'm going to look at it one more time before we close the video. There are some clunky things in this game. I remember noticing as an adult. This is where the reinforcements come in. It's very clunky how the reinforcements come in and how you try to intercept them. It's kind of funny how you move from point of the square to point of the square, but still great. The colonies start all spread out. Each of these stars shows where one of the one of the armies starts. The British start together on these British flags, 4 to a square. Not completely historical. At the start of the war, I think the British were literally all in Boston. And then one of the clever things that this thing does about this game is the British can move by sea, I think, as long as they own those locations. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to look at the uniforms all at the top. And this stuff makes a lot of feel for the period with the flags and the cannons and the ammo and the cannonballs. It also tells you the locations of the battles of the war. And I just thought this was really an excellent game. I hope to play it with my son this weekend for the first time. And that is going to conclude this video. And I highly recommend this game. I recommend it the most of any games in the American Heritage series. Dogfight would be another close contender. My son and I will maybe put up a play of this game. I'd want to definitely put up a play of Battle Cry, maybe even Dogfight, and those are what I think made for a good childhood. Even though I was getting into Avalon Hill games about this not long after this, these games are always going to be a special place in my heart, and I'm looking forward to playing this again.